This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All righty, welcome back. We take you, I don't know till when, but we got Cameron Wolfe now. We're going to talk a little Dolphins football with our Fort Lauderdale Police Department Miami Dolphins report. What are you, in your backyard now?
Yeah, my backyard. It's a nice Friday out. I figured we'll change up the setting and hang out back here.
Area, the things you couldn't do in Tennessee at this time of year, right? In other words,
No, not at all. There's definitely, I have a big coat on right now if I was living in Nashville. So
where are
I
you
definitely
originally from?
appreciate it. I'm originally from Mississippi.
Okay.
So I'm used to the heat. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, definitely that, dude. It gets just as hot and humid over there as does here, dude. I've been in the summers, like Atlanta. People don't realize like it's away from the water, and you think, no, they're not as hot as. No, dude, no. It gets brutal in the South, man. Yeah, all that area there, man. It just gets just as bad as here. So yeah, although you feel a little more cold over there than we do here. That's the only. That's
true.
the only difference there. There's no doubt about that. All right. Your impressions overall of what you've seen of Mike McDaniel. I know you've seen some of him already from his days in San Francisco and all the stuff on social media, but how everything was handled yesterday on his behalf.
Yeah, I think that, first of all, the first day as new head coach, there's always optimism, right? So I want to, we're not going to know who he truly is until we see him in action. And honestly, they lose a few games and see how you react. That's what I want to see. But my initial reaction is some of the things that we heard about him coming in. He's got a little bit of different personality. He's witty. He had a couple one-liners that made me laugh. And he's going to bring a different energy as a coach. I think that as an offensive mind, we're going to see what he can get out of Tua. That's going to be the big question of how good he is. But overall, my first impression is I can see why, they wanted to hire him. I think that he mentioned it in his press conference, but this was the only team that interviewed him as a head coach. So they're jumping out in front of the train, the brigade, so to speak, as far as a thing that was going to take off in the next couple of years. So I think that Mike McDaniel, he deserves our chance, to give him a chance, essentially. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm giving him a chance to see what he can do.
The continuity, we were talking with Omar earlier, and he was a Josh Boyer fan, but then he felt that he was kind of fooled because he felt that Flo and Alexander were making the calls down the stretch and not Boyer. But yet Boyer is now retained as the defensive coordinator to, I guess, keep some continuity in place. But Gerald Alexander was let go, a guy that you're also a big fan of, interviewed for the DC job, for the Jags DC job, but Caldwell ended up getting that job. So, and obviously he was a big Flo guy. So maybe that's why they didn't keep Gerald there. I don't know. Maybe there was some kind of uncomfortableness. But your opinions on the chess pieces moving on defense, how much of it do you believe? Was Boyer making any calls? Was he out of the mix in the second half? What have you been hearing of that?
Yeah, a Big O. If you remember, a few weeks ago, I reported that they wanted to keep most of their defensive staff, and that started with Josh Boyer. The Gerald Alexander thing caught me by surprise. I thought he was going to be a part of the group retained. There's a lot of things that we don't see inside the building that happen that I've learned more about in the last couple of days. I can't speak to what all O reported, but I do know that there were roles that shifted in the second half of the season. GA moved up into the booth. I do not believe that he took over play calling. GA did, but I do know there was a structure that changed as a whole, as far as how they were delineating. Flores definitely had a bigger hand as far as scheme and running things together. And I think that all of that plays a factor in this. Flores was giving Gerald more power and more responsibility in the second half of the year as a whole. And if GA, he's a big personality, he's a big leader. And I think a lot of the players in the locker room, in fact, I know a lot of the players in the locker room respect him. So a lot of that comes in, and you're building your new staff, Josh Boyer is, and maybe some of these things come into consideration. So I don't know Josh Boyer's perspective. I haven't talked to Josh Boyer, but you can kind of look at what's happened, and You're like, why is GA here? Why is Josh Boyer not? You can kind of look at some of the things that happened this year, and as Flo's not here, Josh Boyer gets to put along his own staff, and it's really his defense. And that's something I just tweeted about earlier. I'm really interested to see what the Dolphins 2022 defense looks like, because obviously, although Josh Boyer was the defensive coordinator and a guy calling plays, Brian Flores had a big hand in that, a big hand in the scheme. And so now with Flores gone, it'll be Josh Boyer's defense. So I don't think it'll be exactly the same. I wouldn't be surprised if they run a lot more man coverage. In the second half of the year, if you watch the tape, they ran a lot more zone coverage.
So,
and I believe that's something that was something that Flores and maybe some of GA kind of entered into the defense. And so now it's Boyer. He's coming truly from that Patriot scheme where they play man, man, man. So that's the one thing I'm curious about going forward is how Boyer does when everything is his.
all right. So overall, is that the move? Do you like the move? Is that I mean, for continuity purposes, keeping Crossman and Boyer running your units, that is obviously a positive, right? So at least for continuity purposes, you agree with the move?
I would have liked to keep Gerald Alexander. That was something that I thought was very important. But as far as Josh Boyer keeping his job, I thought the defense was good last year. I thought there was, scheme wise, if they're keeping similar scheme, then I have no issue with it. I thought it was a really good scheme last year. The question I'm going to have is, and I mentioned this to you last week or Big O, and I don't know the answer, which is why I can't say it definitively. I'm curious how much Mike McDaniel was behind this versus the Dolphins organization saying, "Hey, we want to keep the Dolphins defensive staff." Like, I hope, and I don't know for sure, but I hope that Mike McDaniel was able to interview him and say, "Hey, I think Josh Boyer's the best guy for the job," because I'm a big believer in letting your head coach have control of his staff. So that's my only question, and I have to do more homework to see if I can figure out the answer to that. But I think that, like I said, the scheme itself, whether it's Boyer, Flores, GA, where you want to look at it, was good last year. So I have no problem with running back the scheme. We're just going to have to see how Boyer does without some of those ancillaries around him.
All right, so let me ask you, there was some talk about Fangio, and while Boyer's running the defense, a lot of times you'll bring in an older assistant to kind of be a sounding board, a little bit of guidance, those kind of things. Is that still in play for the Dolphins? Because if you're naming Boyer, you're getting rid of Alexander, I'm no longer hearing so much about maybe one of those type of individuals coming in. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Big O, I actually spoke to somebody this morning who has a relationship with Fangio, and he mentioned that he thought that Fangio was going to take a year off. He believed that was the most likely thought there. From what I understand, he had conversations with, close to double-digit teams about him being interested and them being interested in him joining their staff, and he hadn't necessarily found the right fit yet. Maybe that changes. Maybe they can do something to woo him, but as of now, I'm not expecting Fangio in Miami, and I'm thinking that, there's more likely than not that he ends up just taking some time off, or maybe he does a little consultant role where he's not doing much as a whole. So, but as far as another veteran coach, I know that's something that they have had a desire for. I haven't heard any solid names as far as a guy who could, come in and fill that role, but I do know they want to have some of that veteran leadership for him to lean on. They hired John Embry on the offensive side of the ball, who's going to be their assistant head coach and tight end coach. He's going to be Mike McDaniel's sounding board and sort of veteran leadership on the offensive side. And so you definitely need that on the defensive side because, Josh Boyer has been in the league for a while, but he still is a younger dude. So even if it's like this guy is a, senior defensive assistant or something of that title where you're more of a leadership position than a scheme guy, I think that's something they still desire. So the staff is not finished yet. I mentioned it earlier today, but Rob Leonard, their linebacker coach, George Godsey, their co-OC, both left to go to Baltimore. Some of the coaches have already been told they can look for other jobs. So that's been happening. And so I expect them to get to the point where they're finalizing the staff in the next week or so. So a lot of people have been told, not everybody's been told. So maybe some of those last roles is that defensive senior position that you're talking about.
Curtis Johnson being interviewed for an OC position. Wes Welker also, the coach mentioned that Welker coming in also to help out, wide receivers coach. any other coaches are you hearing on the offensive side to help out? Because I think we're all intrigued to find out who the hell is coaching the offensive line, because Pepe Le Pew did not work out, and I'm bless you, and I'm sure he's in the cash bar, baby.
Yeah, I do believe they'll find a new O line coach. And that's not a shock to you, Big O. I know you've been running that
Well, that's not
debate.
a shock to anybody, okay? That's
Right,
not a shock
right.
to you either, okay? Come on,
No, it's not
don't just throw me under the bus here, okay?
no. It's not just you, but I know we've talked about it on this show, and I don't know if there's anybody else in the world who has said more about Dolphins O line coach needing to be changed than
Well,
Big O.
well,
So
wait a minute, but hold on. Let's be honest now, because dude, you get to
I'm
talk.
not. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying
No,
you're wrong.
I know I'm not wrong, but my point is, you talk to people in the building, right? Because I do, and some of their reactions will make your
Right,
ass laugh about him. I mean,
right.
in the building, they knew what they didn't have at that position. So, I mean, you've gotten some reactions too, right, from people in the building, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
Big
okay,
O. I hear a lot of stuff. Just me
okay, all
personally,
right.
I'm not a huge kill a guy's career if it didn't go well in his first year as the O line coach. So it
It
clearly
was,
did not go well.
and by the way, it wasn't like it was a thing. It was more of he's not ready for this. It
Right, and
wasn't
that's
that he's
why.
a bad guy or he can't really be a teacher or anything like. He just was not ready for this level, and that's all it really was. And everybody in that building pretty much was like, "Yo, like, how did that guy not see that this guy's not ready to coach at this level?" And that's what it was more than anything else. It wasn't like, oh my God, he's so incredibly incompetent and he's leaving the building at 2 o'clock to go get the back nine at some golf course or something. No, it wasn't anything like that. It was just one of those things that it was like, wow, he bit off way more than he can chew. And everybody in the building knew it was. That's just it.
Yeah, I think that you never really know a guy's ready until you put him into the fire. So I understand giving a former player a first time job. Clearly, did not work out. It did not work out. He definitely needs more time to be able to get the job right. I don't believe that he doesn't mean that he's going to be eventually a good O line coach in the league, maybe
Yeah,
down the line.
5, 10
But
years from now. I mean, Zach Taylor, dude, we had him here where he had 3 pubes on his face and he was shaven 10 years ago. You didn't know what he could be 10 years later, and look where he's at
right,
right now on Sunday. You don't know
right.
that.
So yeah, I think that's something that as you see through his career, maybe he evolves. But yes, it did not go well. I've been told some of the stories from people inside the building. But I think that hire, and I mentioned this to you before, is the most important hire to me of anything they can make. The OC is going to be good, but Mike McDaniel already has said he's calling plays, so that guy is going to be more helping with the game plan. The O line coach is going to be running the most important group outside of quarterback on this team. Mike McDaniel is going to have hands on Tua a lot, so I'm expecting him to be. They'll hire a quarterback coach, but I'm expecting Mike McDaniel to be a big part of Tua's development. But the O line, there's no other group that needs to be changed. And Mike McDaniel referenced it in his press conference saying, "Hey, it doesn't matter what Tua's going to do if we can't keep him upright." So I
Right.
haven't heard any names solid that I would feel comfortable saying on this broadcast about guys they would hire. But I think that's something that is churning. I'd expect someone that is comfortable with that outside zone scheme from the Shanahan days. That's a really specific scheme. So you need certain line coaches. So like I know we mentioned certain names before, like a
Oh,
Mike
so then
Munchak, but
Munchak doesn't fit that then.
he does exactly, and that's what I was going
Okay.
to, Big O. Like we talked about some of those veteran guys like Munchak, but Munchak is not an outside zone guy. So when I realized that Mike McDaniel's getting hired, that sort of, in my opinion, I haven't heard this definitively,
Makes
but it
sense.
takes away
Yeah.
some of these guys like that. So I think you're going to find somebody who may not be as experienced as Munchak, but's coming from that 49ers zone scheme, realm, so to speak.
Isn't Gibbs' kid in the league?
Uh maybe it's Alex Gibbs. Is that his
Yeah,
name?
yeah. The stud. Yes, Alex Gibbs.
Gotcha.
I thought his son also got into it, and I thought his son was somewhere, in the infancy stages somewhere of it, or
Maybe I have to do more research on that. I do not know for sure, but that's possible.
yeah. It's a, that, see, That's the job, and I'm sure you're pissed, by the way, because if it was Munchak, you probably would have broken it before all of us, because obviously a Tennessee connection. But now we've got to try to figure out, okay, where's the zone coach coming from? Who is it? Who's the guy? Who's the guy that might be available out there that has some kind of connection to this tree in the NFL or college? Right now we got to scramble to try to find that name. Who could Mike McDaniel be thinking of right now?
Right, and the thing, Big O, is that O-line coaches are like valuable diamonds, because if you
Yeah.
get a really good O-line coach, you're not gonna want to let him leave. So that's why you see some of these O-line coaches that the same way. One of my favorite O-line coaches, and I'm sorry if I'm losing some of the audience because I'm getting too much in the weeds, but Jeff Stoutland up in Philly.
Yes.
He's a guy who has been excellent with that O-line. He's done it for a long time. Alabama, Nick Saban actually brought him to college because he was so good, and then Philly went and got him again. I don't know how much he's getting paid, but I'd imagine it's a lot of money. And he's well worth it, because you look at that Philly O-line year in and year out, and they've got other issues on that team, but the O-line is always consistent. And technique, like you mentioned, teaching technique, being able to gel guys and within the scheme and learn everything, that's a difficult part of the game. And you can barely do anything, as we saw with the Dolphins last year, if your O-line is not good. So I think that's something where, a lot of times when you're a new head coach, especially a younger head coach, you're probably going to have to take a chance on an O-line coach who comes from your scheme but may not be a super veteran. So I wouldn't be shocked if you see some assistant O-line coach that came from the 49ers tree end up becoming the head guy here.
Yeah, Stoutland, by the way, was with the Canes. I don't know
Yep.
if you knew that. Back in
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
in like 2009 or 8 or 10 or something like that, or like in the mid 2000s. He was here, right, if I remember correctly, but I remember the name, and obviously a good coach that's climbed the ladder overall. All right, your favorite Mike McDaniel moment from yesterday.
I mean, there was a couple. I liked his reference. Like, he's made a couple of Welcome to Miami references. Will
Right.
Smith, he's trying to show the culture there. He gave the why not response when someone asked if, why can't this be? Why are
Moser.
you the guy that the
Moser asked
Dolphins?
that.
Yeah,
Moser asked
that was a good question, a good response. But I guess my favorite one, he walked off to the side with some of the reporters off to the side after the press conference, and this is something that I could share with the viewers because it wasn't on the press conference. But he ended up explaining his playing days. He said he played at Yale, but he said don't look up his stats because there won't be many. And so he talked about that. And he said that I had snaps, but it wasn't many. And he shared his Yale experience, and I thought it was funny, just kind of hearing him talk about just sort of how he transitioned as a coach from a player. And he was very self-deprecating, if I can say it. And I think it humanized him in my eyes, because a lot of times people are really stiff in these press conferences. They have an agenda, and clearly that was off script for him. And he talked about that. He also talked about being a John Elway fan, which Dolphins fans would be like, "Whoa, you're not supposed to say that at all." But he grew up in Colorado. He grew up a Broncos fan. So he's like, "Hey, man, I grew up a John Elway fan. This was something that was important." But he was like, "But I grew up in all the big eras of those three quarterbacks: John Elway, Dan Marino, Jim Kelly." And he said that it was surreal for him driving down a street with Dan Marino's name, and then having Dan Marino shake his hand and say, "Welcome to the Dolphins. I'm happy to meet you." And he's like, "You're happy to meet me? You're Dan Marino. What you
Right.
talk?" So like some of the that's what I'm talking about. Some of those human moments that humanized him in my eyes, makes me excited to cover him as a coach, because it has
Sure.
nothing to do with how he coaches. Like, he's got a coach, that's the football perspective. But from a human perspective, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Like if I grew up rooting for these dudes, like them shaking their hand and saying that would be real. Me, if I played at Yale as a receiver, and all of a sudden I'm an NFL coach, that's something that would stick with me. So some of those personal experiences that he shared, those will probably be what I remember the most.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm happy for you guys. I mean, I'm happy for all of us also, because you guys are the conduit to the team, and so you guys are going to get to write much better stories, more in-depth stuff, stuff that will have more detail to it, instead of the ogre coach that just has the blinders on, doesn't know anything that's going on in life, could not make a Will Smith reference if their lives depended on it. Those like Pat Riley was the greatest, dude. Pat Riley could talk music and politics and life and basketball and then he'd send messages to his teams through us and so we had all kinds of avenues and all kinds of things to discuss. Jimmy, while he was a tyrant at times, was an incredibly smart guy because he studied psychology, so he was very good at while in his chaos, he was still very smart in answering our questions and giving us stuff that we can run with, even if some of it was sending messages to his players. I think all of these things that fans don't understand, that the better you have that, the better storytelling you guys get, the more information we all get, the better feel we get for actually what's going on. And I don't believe it ever really puts any coach in a vulnerable situation if you're just being yourself and you're being honest. I
Absolutely,
really
Big O. Absolutely. And that's something that's a really good point. And that's something I try to stress with people. Obviously, I'm in the media. It helps you and I when people open up, but it also helps, like you mentioned, the coach, the player, the team, because fans, like our fans who are watching this, are trying to get any type of nugget on their team that they can. And they're trying to humanize these people, figure out who they are as players and coaches, but also who they are as people. So when you open up, when you share stories like Mike McDaniel has, when you give people an layer of the onion, so to speak, you're bringing them, you're bringing yourself into their living room,
right.
and that's something that's always my goal as a writer. I want to tell you who this person is as a person, and that's why I love future telling. So I hope that he gives us an opportunity to do more of that, and it comes with trust. Once he starts to trust us, hopefully there's a trust factor where he could share stuff with us and know that it's going to be told the right way. But when that happens, that creates a special relationship between the media and the coach. It doesn't mean that we only write good stuff about him, but it also means that when there's a story to be shared, it gets out the right way and the fan base can really appreciate it because we're not worried about, we get the full story. We're
Right.
not sharing pieces, we're getting the whole thing.
You know, Pat would rarely, I mean, not would rarely, but coaches rarely will ever admit a mistake or they screwed up. Riley was the guy that when he screwed up or made a mistake, that's how he started the press conference.
Right.
So he would disarm the media right away.
Yep.
So the media was
Yep.
already ready to go after you, right? But Riley was always playing chess.
Right.
That's what he's always been my favorite person that I've covered as a beat guy when I had to do the beat stuff years ago, decades ago now. Anyway,
Yeah.
so it was just one of those things. And it's funny because there are people that know how to use us
Yeah.
and know how to use us in a way that they know how to disarm us. And yeah, obviously everybody's going to always face some kind of heat or something. Yes, that's fine. But it seems like those people that know how to disarm us and be more of themselves, those controversies, they come and go a lot
Yep.
faster.
Yep,
You
that's an
know what I mean?
excellent point, Big. That's an excellent point, Big O. And
It's
and
crazy.
I actually mentioned this to a coach one time, and I try my best to not let it impact me. But we're all human, and so there's a saying that the media won't get a coach fired, but it'll give him grace to save him time, essentially. And so, like, if something comes out, a story or something that's going to be negative, you're going to have more grace and more genuine care for a person if they're cooperative with you, if they're pleasant to be around versus they're not. That's just natural human nature. So the coach may not know when they need the media, but when it happens, you can't scramble at that point and say, oh, all of a sudden let me pretend to be something I'm not. So that's something that I think some coaches realize, some coaches don't. And it's interesting, especially like on my side of things on TV, you see a lot of coaches going into the media after they're playing, and some of the coaches were bad with the media. And you
Right.
hear some of them, and they admit, like, "Hey, I should have been." Now I'm seeing the side of it. I should have been better. I didn't realize how this works, and it's like sometimes you have to see the other side to realize we're not trying to get you. We're not the evil monsters trying to make everything
No.
difficult. We're just trying to do our jobs. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes our jobs can align with your jobs.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's the whole thing that the cover up is worse than the crime, and it's
Right.
it's not the perfect analogy, but it's kind of an analogy like that. That okay, so something bad happened. Well, coach, don't go taking a combative attitude to it with the fans and the media, because that's not going to help you. You might as well take a proactive approach to the negative situation, and that way the media will then overcome. And by the way, an example for you is Spo. I think
Yep.
Spo's kind of earned that already
Yep.
over the years because he's a good dude. We see it. He's pretty candid about stuff. He's pretty open. He doesn't really. He's not like like he leaves a lot of gray area. He answers your questions and he gives you what you need. And I think he's
Right.
one of those guys that you're talking about that has kind of earned it from fans and media, that even if something negative happens, it'll go by quickly because you'll go,
Right.
Spo will figure it out. He'll be fine.
Yeah,
He'll be fine.
Spo's a great point. And Big O, that does not mean that you're friends with the media all to an extent
Right.
where all your friends are media. There's a difference. It does not mean that. You can still have a separation of coach and media where you're not friends per se, but you can be cognizant of your job and not play a shield. And like for example, just Mike McDaniel just using it. He came out like very simply and said, "Hey, I'm going to be a play caller." And that's
Right.
something where like it's something simple, and he obviously knew that. This is something that wasn't like a big nugget, but like just telling us that from the
And
initial
he
press
disarmed you.
conference,
And he
and it
disarmed you.
disarms you. So like
Right.
we're not gonna spend the next 3 months figuring out, oh, is your OC gonna be calling plays? Is
What
it
we
gonna
did with
be Mike
Flo. Who's
McDaniel?
calling?
Like,
Who's calling? With Flo,
right.
who's calling? Who's did this? He
Yeah,
kept us
some
in
of
the
that,
dark because he fought it the entire time instead of just disarming us right away and saying, "Hey guys, this is how it is. Da 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 da. We love it. This is how we're doing forward. Hey, let's move on. Boom. That's it. It's
right.
over."
And some of that stuff has an impact. Like that makes our job easier. Ideally, makes your job easier. You don't have to worry about hiding everything from us if you're just open. Like we don't. You don't have to worry about who's digging around figuring out who's the play caller if you're telling us the first time you're introduced.
And
So
and there's
simple
a
stuff like that.
and doggy, there's a domino effect. Because if you're lying or trying to be deceitful or trying to mislead, then we say, okay, are you doing this here now? And in this case, are you doing it? And in this case, if you're doing, but if you're honest and disarming right from the get, hey, I'm going to call plays. Hey, I'm going to do this. And if it's a consistent thing, you're going to go, well, hey, Mike said he was going to do this, and that's what he's done. And then that's the track record you live with every week, every month, that the coach tells you right away, this is what it is. And that's what follows through. There'll never be another second guessing again. But when you start with that whole offensive coordinator stuff, then you start to say, okay, so now this is what you're going to do about everything. So now you've got to then decipher everything. You don't know what's truth and what's lie.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Weird, man.
That's an absolutely great point.
All right,
Great point.
Rams or Bengals? Who wins?
Whew, that's a good question. What's the spread on that game? 5.5?
Four now. Four. It goes
Four?
from 3.5 to 4.5, but it
Gotcha.
looks now like it's going between 3.5 and 4. Cam. So it all
Okay.
depends. But I'm gonna go 4 right now. Is the
Okay.
spread?
I would probably go Rams and I would take the points. I think that Rams team, and I'm not completely sold on Matthew Stafford, but I am sold on that defense, and I'm sold on some of their playmakers on offense. And I think the way the Bengals offensive line has been exposed at times this year, I think the Rams can do the same thing. And I think I told you on the show, I'm a big fan of Von Miller. I think his combination with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey are going to be too much for the Bengals. And I actually think, I'm not betting on this. We're not allowed to bet in the NFL. If you're seeing this NFL, I'm not betting on this game. But I would feel really comfortable taking a long shot bet on one of the defensive stars trying to win MVP. I feel like it's going to be that
Dude,
sort of game.
you and me are in this. I'm saying Aaron Donald is the MVP of the
Right.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where there's Aaron Donald, I think Aaron Donald's like a 16-1 MVP. I think Von Miller's like a 50-1 MVP odds. Whatever you want to feel comfortable with. If not happening, if I was to be betting on this game, that would probably be what I would be most interested in, because I think that's the biggest advantage in this game. The Rams defensive front over the Bengals offensive line. As good as Joe Burrow's been this year, I just don't know if he can overcome that.
Yeah, and I think Donald is going to be so motivated to be a beast on
Yep.
Sunday. I just think that I think the guys in the Rams locker room are afraid to let him down on Sunday.
Right.
Not Matt Stafford, not Sean McVay, not the Rams ownership. They're all going, no, dude, no, we gotta do it for that guy, because I think
Yep.
Aaron, like I said it earlier. Have you ever watched Fast Times at Richmond High?
You've asked me about this before. I'm gonna watch it this offseason. I promise. I have not
The
watched
hell
it.
is wrong with you, bro? Anyway,
Big O,
you
we are a different age range. I haven't
I
even
know.
turned 30
I
yet.
know,
Now,
I know, but
did the movie come out while I was alive?
you gotta watch classics. Like, you don't watch any of the
I
great
mean, I do.
classics, right?
I
You
mean,
gotta
I've
watch
watched a few of the
like
classics.
yeah, well, that's a
I
classic. That's a
Okay, I
classic.
will watch. I promise you in the
That
next.
is one of the classic high school fun, and it still holds up, actually.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? Yesterday, I ran into it. My wife laughed. I left it on for like 5 minutes, and she laughed at a moment
So
there.
so it's legitimately funny, Big O.
Oh, no, yes, it is. Yes.
All right. So
Yes.
I'm definitely gonna watch this.
No,
I've got an assignment next week, sometime between now and the start of the combine. I'm
you
gonna
will
watch this
laugh.
movie, and I'm gonna come back, and I'm not gonna lie to you, Big O. If it's not funny, we're gonna be talking about.
Right?
We're gonna be
He's
talking
gotta
about
laugh
it.
at dude, you're gonna have to laugh a few times on Fast Times at Richmond High.
Okay. All
You
right.
have to. You're going to laugh your ass off
Okay.
overall. I mean, if you don't laugh some at Fast Times at Richmond High, then I don't think you really have a sense of humor. That's kind of the
I
way
have
it
a
goes.
sense of humor. All right.
Okay,
So
so
you're
you
hyping it
will
up.
have
I'm
to
looking
laugh.
forward to it.
You have
All
to,
right.
and
All
the
right.
actors that are in it are legendary actors, dude. Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah.
Okay, so Forrest Whitaker is Aaron Donald. That's all I'm going to leave you at.
Okay.
Okay, you
Okay.
need to watch it. What
I
because
will.
now I don't want to tell you also about the movie because I want you to really enjoy the movie because it's funny. Seriously,
Okay.
like tonight, if I know it's on a streaming service, dude. Okay,
Okay.
you can watch it on Prime or Netflix or whatever. Sit down with the wife for 90 minutes, and I
Yeah.
promise you, you will text me after and say, "Dude, that was actually a good call. It's a funny movie." And
Okay.
you'll watch. It's one of those that you'll watch again. Do you like old school?
Old school what? Like old school hip hop? Yeah, I like old
No,
school
no,
hip
no.
hop.
Of course, old school hip hop is the greatest of all time. But no, I'm talking about the movie Old School.
Oh yeah, it was yeah, that was a solid movie.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. You
Okay.
if you enjoyed that, then I I don't know which one's funnier. They're both so funny, man. I don't know. Different kinds of funny, right? Because one is fraternity funny, the other one's high school funny. So it's kind of different types of humor, but trust me, you'll enjoy it. And one of
Gotcha.
the most iconic 80s scenes ever
Mm-hmm.
will be in that movie. Okay. So when you see her getting out of the pool, you'll know that the scene is coming. So one of
Yeah.
the most iconic scenes ever. All right. That's your homework.
I will watch it and I
Eh,
will report back. And if it's not funny, Big O, I'm gonna call you on
No, that's
it.
fine. If it's not funny, then you choose the movie and it's on me for you and the wife, and I'll pay wherever you're going for any movie theater.
Okay.
IMAX, whatever the hell you want on me. All right?
Okay.
I'll
All
Zell
right.
you. You're
Well,
right there at the theater. I'll Zell you the cash. You know I can Zell. I'm pretty good at
right.
Zelling, right? Right? I'm
Right.
pretty good every
Yeah.
30 days. I'm pretty good at Zelling, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
so I'll Zell you. It's on me, your next movie. But you know what would be perfect for you to watch it tonight or tomorrow night before the Super Bowl? Because if you
Okay.
get to see Forrest Whitaker, a super young Forrest Whitaker, by the way,
Yep.
play that role, and then you watch Aaron Donald on Sunday, you're going to be laughing and smiling on Sunday watching Aaron Donald, thinking of Forrest Whitaker from Fast Times at Richmond High.
Okay. All right.
That's all I'm going to say.
I will put it on our doc.
Okay, movies on me. Much love, my brother. Have a great weekend. We'll catch up next week. Did we lose him? Okay, we lost him. All right, that was Cam Wolfe, baby, and our Fort Lauderdale Police Department, Miami Dolphins. Oh wait, he's back. Okay. All right, Cam, much love. I appreciate you, man. Have a great weekend, all right? I appreciate you.
All right, big dog.
You got it, baby. Be good. There you go. That's Cam Wolfe, baby, in our Fort Lauderdale Police Department, Miami Dolphins report.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.